Well, today I'm joined by Professor Billy So, who is a professor of history at the Chinese University of Hong Kong and also the director of the Center for East Asian Studies at the Chinese University of Hong Kong. So here we are, Billy. I think we should just have a conversation. I'd love to hear some more from you about what you make of this whole field of global history. But I know that you work, in the field of Chinese history, you work in lots of different areas, don't you? Could you just could you just remind us?
Sometimes I lost my identity. I don't know what exactly field I'm doing because I'm just, curiosity just drives me, to touch on so many things. I started with Song Dynasty, that is 10th to 14th century. I work on maritime history.
Right.
Maritime sort of economics.
So maritime history, but also export and trade, particularly?
Export, trade that involved. But that's more on the institutional economics side of it.
Right.
My interest is not exactly how the overseas trades are conducted, but how that trade affect the local economy.
Right.
Or how the local economy respond to that newly opened sort of opportunities in trade. So that's how I started.
So that's the idea that China actually during the Song Dynasty, so in the 10th 11th, 12th century, really was outward looking and actively involved in overseas trade.
Yeah, but I won't say China. I would say maritime China.
Right.
But of course now that is the thing that all my research I start to have this kind of reflections. So China is not just one thing. Just a one entity. What do we mean by China? So we have to look at it in different aspects. Now, from what we were just discussing, we can also identify it somewhat like the part of China that's more responsive to the ocean, for example, right? To trade, to foreign contacts, to cultures.
Right.
That part might not be exactly the same as other parts of China.
Absolutely, no. So the maritime region is kind of operating independently from what maybe the intellectuals or the literati or the government is saying policy should be.
Yeah, I won't say independently. I would say it also have all these things that we can consider like Neo-Confucianism. It's also very strong in the maritime China that I was talking about. Mm-hmm. So it's not that we think of Confucian China is one thing and then other parts non-Confucian China. No, they're all the same.
Right.
The problem is some of these geographical areas in China is more it's closer, it's more open to the overseas cultures, and then somehow it just developed different natures.
Right.
Now, so I start to have interest in those kind of things, and that involve, of course, connections. In a sense, using the term that the conference, this conference is using is connection.
Yeah.
And also a matter of comparison as well. Comparing different cultures, cultures in different countries, different societies. So I started from that, and then I moved on to other periods of Chinese history. Mm-hmm. I moved down to 17th century, 18th century, and finally 19th and 20th century. And I looked at first I started with Fujian province, which is just opposite to Taiwan. Mm-hmm. Then I moved to other areas like the lower Yangtze Delta. Mm-hmm. And also end up in a research project on Beijing. So somehow I'm kind of moving away from the original interest of southern China. I actually moved north.
So what do you think of this, the kind of emphasis that the work by Ken Pomerantz has given to the Yangtze Delta, which seems to suggest that particular region is very easy to compare to Britain, right? Whereas your work tries to bring in some other regions. Do you think these comparisons that you're talking about, do they work for other regions, or do we have to find a completely different framework for comparison?
No, the frame, whether they can be, whether it's good to compare this this region or another region with, let's say, England, it all depends on what we want to achieve. Right? What's the purpose of that comparison? So the comparison will tell us, will guide us on where to go. If we want to compare, let's say, commercialization of the culture of the rural China.
Yeah.
Now that's something very comparable. If you compare the Loyangji. But let's say I know your interest is ceramics. Then you don't compare Shanghai ceramics production in Shanghai, right?
Sure.
You look in other areas. Not it's actually away from Gerritsen is away from the Delta area, although it has a very strong connection with the economy, with the economy in the Loyangji. But the production itself is quite far away from Shanghai.
Right, and a lot of the trade, of course, goes from. I mean, Fujian is very important too, not for Jingdezhen wares, but for other ceramics, and of course Canton. I mean, the southern region. Over time it really changes. I think it's very hard, isn't it, to have that focus that is just on the Yangtze Delta, and it seems to exclude some of the other parts. So I think it's important to bring somebody like you in, who is an expert in very different regions. I'm not the only one.
I think other people are doing the same thing. For example, one of my colleagues, David Ford, he spent a lot of time studying South China in the Canton area, but now he's working on Shanxi as well, right? So I think this is
there are other people.
We are not sort of addicted to a particular region.
No, that's true.
Yeah, so it's a comparison, and then the comparison eventually you have to ask what's the question you want to ask. Why are you asking those questions? And then it will lead you to see other places where you want to compare and make some sense out of that comparison. Right? So that's my development. I'm in the my latest research. I work on Beijing actually, Republican period. So it's quite far away from Fujian.
Absolutely. So do you think, in looking at the work that's being done in Hong Kong and at the Chinese University in Hong Kong, is global history something that they think about, that they are engaged with, or do they think, well, what's the field like out there?
I don't think we have a course called global history. In our curriculum, that's not part of it. Even in my own research, I never really used the term global history in my study. But this conference is good because of the conference, I really have to reflect on what I'm doing and why I'm doing those things all these years. And then I start to feel that actually there's a global dimension in what I've been doing. Although I'm not using the term of global history, but actually I'm doing something about global history. Now the question is, then I have to ask what does it mean by global history?
Yeah.
Then I realized that actually this term itself is so fascinating. It's so controversial.
It's so
controversial. Exactly because it's controversial. That's why it's so fascinating.
Yeah.
There's a lot of room for you to redefine it, to reflect on it, and to be creatively generate more meaning out of that. So I actually, I must say, in the last few months, I really gave a lot of thought into this whole idea of global history. And I think of course, I have some cooperators in the university that I'm sort of visiting now. This is my sabbatical in North America, and I came up with some ideas with my cooperators, and then I hope to develop some kind of arguments related to the broader issues of global history. So that I can somehow sort of share or exchange with you people that you've been engaging in global history for so long. I'm sure you have a lot of things for me to learn from, and I'm a beginner.
Well, I don't know. I think it's very interesting to think about the very different ways in which global history is interpreted in different contexts, right? And it means something different when you ask somebody in China, mainland China, Hong Kong, Taiwan is very different again. And I think the concept needs to take all that on board and sort of develop into, growing so that it can accommodate all
Right.
those different interpretations, rather than imposing some British view of what global history
Right.
should be, right?
Right. I think that's probably is the fascinating part, because in my, I'm preparing a very short sort of presentation during the round table. Eventually I promised to make it a paper. Mm-hmm. Right. I will submit a paper to the conference. One of the themes. Well, put it this way, my paper will start with the reflection of the idea, the notion, the very notion or concept of global history. I would call it globalization of the global history. Mm-hmm. Globalization of this concept of global history itself. In the sense that you really draw in all these you just mentioned, right? So many different ideas. Everybody got some idea in, but you have to accommodate them.
Yeah, yeah. I like that. The globalization of global history.
Of the term global history itself. Actually, it's globalizing the whole discourse. Oh, what I would say is globalization of the discourse of
global history.
Right. So that's my starting point.
Right. Well,
so
I think
that's fascinating.
I think the globalization of global history, I think that's where we'll leave it today. So thank you very much.
Thank you.